Welcome to One on One. I'm your host, Lee Adams, and today I'm just absolutely thrilled to have a guy that anybody that knows anything about sports in the city of Pittsburgh knows of our guest today. He was an All-American basketball player at Duke University. He grew up in Swissvale. He went on to play in the Major League Baseball League for 14 years. He was the MVP. He's accomplished things that are almost hard to believe. He owns Champion Lakes Golf Course up in Ligonier, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm just so pleased to welcome our guest today, Mr. Dick Groat. Mr. Groat, it's a pleasure to have you.
I'm very happy to be here. It's a joy that anybody wants you.
Now, we were talking a little bit before the interview. You've accomplished so much in sports, but what are the things that you're really most proud of?
I guess being the only person right now in both the college basketball and college baseball Hall of Fames, and being an All-American 4 times, twice in baseball and twice in basketball, College Basketball Player of the Year in 1952, and of course winning 2 world championships, one with the Pirates in '60, one with the St. Louis Cardinals in '64, has always been my greatest joy, especially to win a World Series in your own hometown.
And we're going to talk about that, but is there something that you're really proud of that most people don't talk about?
Yeah, I guess in St. Louis they do, but not here in Pittsburgh.
What's
I
that?
finished second in the MVP voting the second time in 1963, which ironically was the best year I ever had in baseball, even better than the year I had with the Pirates in 1960.
Well, who finished ahead of you?
Sandy Koufax. You don't mind losing to probably the greatest left-hander of our era, without a doubt.
Well, you're a right-handed batter, right?
Correct.
And you're a shortstop. And you play with Bill Mazeroski.
Right.
What was he like to play with?
Bill Mazeroski is the greatest second baseman ever walked on a baseball diamond. Absolutely no doubt about it. In fact, I've told this to Bill numerous times. I can't ever recall his having given me a bad throw at second base where I was going to get torn up by a base runner. He was just that good.
Why do you think he was that good?
Well, first of all, something a lot of people overlook is the fact that he had great feet, great legs, strong legs. Everybody talked about his hands, which was very, very true. But nobody ever knocked him off his feet at second base. And that quick release on the double play was just unreal. And overall infielders, when Bill kicked a ground ball, it was like once every 2 months. He was that good.
And is there such a thing as soft hands as an infielder?
He had everything an infielder ever dreams of having, from soft hands to the quickest release you'd ever imagine on turn that double play.
Do they teach soft hands? Do they teach you how to have that?
I don't think. I think a lot of it comes from hard work, basically. You grow up taking ground balls, throwing balls off a wall when you're just a little kid.
Yeah. But I always thought when you received the ball as an infielder, you wanted to receive it, bringing your hands back a little bit to soften it. Does that make any sense?
Sure.
Yeah. Did they teach that?
Not particularly.
Yeah.
It comes natural, pretty much.
Yeah, it comes natural. It comes natural. So you grew up in Swissvale. What was it like growing up in Swissvale?
Great town. Really was a super city. I was so pleased my mother and father raised me there. I had the greatest support in the world. Of course, I was a spoiled brat. I was a baby of 5 children, and my eldest brothers and sisters were up 18, 19 years older than I was. So I was kind of a play toy. And both brothers were pretty good athletes, so I was used to trying to hit their fastball or their curveball, and it sure helped over the years.
Yeah, it's always good to have older brothers.
Correct.
I think I made my older brother or my younger brother a better athlete because I'd take him outside and beat on him, and we'll play him one-on-one and throw fastballs at him. So you're at Swissvale. What were they called? The Swissvale what?
I don't know. Flashes. Ironically, in those days, I made baseball a career, but I probably played 100 times more basketball than I ever did baseball.
What's your love?
I lived and died on the playgrounds playing basketball. I never really played. There was no Little League, no Pony League. I played American Legion. That was the first organized ball I played. I was a sophomore in high school.
No Little League, no Pony League.
Nope.
So it didn't organize until American Legion age.
Correct.
Which is like high school age.
That's right.
So the only way you could play was just pickup games.
That's true.
Boy, things have changed. Now they're...
You never see a pickup game on a playground today. It's sad because those little kids won't play if they don't have a uniform and a ball and an umpire.
So you're right. You're right. It is sad. So you made your living in baseball, but what sport did you like better?
I was a much better basketball player. It was always my first love. That's why I thank Bill Hillgrove a zillion times in my life for having brought me back into college basketball. For 37 years, we've been broadcasting Pitt basketball together, and Pitt basketball has always been my first love.
Wow, I've listened to you for years and years and years call Pitt basketball, and my son listened to you for years. I was telling him you were coming in today. He was like, "Oh, that's Pitt basketball." I said, "Yeah." I said, "But Brian, you don't realize that Mr. Groat is much more than Pitt basketball. That's what he knows about you. But you know, he doesn't realize that you played on those World Series teams and you were at Duke. So now Pitt's in the ACC. Who do you root for when those two teams play against each other?
I root for Duke all the time until they play Pitt. But I've grown up as a Pitt fan since I was little. My first basketball was a basketball that Pitt beat Temple with in 1935. I was 5 years old. My big brothers and my sister was engaged to the captain of the basketball team. So I've been part of the university program for 100 years.
Wow, wow. And so you don't start to play organized ball until your kind of high school years.
Correct.
Is that right? Basketball and baseball.
Yes, there was no Little League or Pony League in those days.
So how tall were you then when you were a player?
When I got out of high school, I guess I was right around 6 feet, 5'11" and a half, 6 feet.
And what did you weigh about back then?
Every year I weighed 172 in basketball and all through my baseball career.
And so you're saying you were you're the MVP in the National League, or in the National League. Well, was it the whole league, the American and the National?
No, just the National League.
Just the National League. And you're second in MVP in '63. You win 2 World Series, but you're saying you were a better basketball player?
Yeah.
And so...
It came much easier. There were certain drawbacks that I had in baseball that I couldn't change.
Such as?
Such as I couldn't run a lick. And I teasingly say all the time, after 14 years in the major leagues, I'm still looking for my 4th infield hit. Infielders played back deep. I just couldn't run. On a basketball court, nobody knows you can't run if your first 2 steps are quick. You go by somebody and they can't catch up. It's just a short distance. I never knew I was that slow until I was a junior, senior at Duke University when the scouts started scouting me, clocking me going to first base. That's when I realized how slow I was.
So you were quick, but not fast.
Correct.
And your quickness served you on a basketball court, but not running first, second base.
Not at all. It helped me in the infield, but it didn't help me going to first and second. I just couldn't get any infield hits. That's all there was to it.
So you didn't steal a lot of bases.
I sure didn't.
And you weren't a power hitter.
No.
So you were a singles, doubles.
Well, I've tried to explain this to young people, but it doesn't sink in very well. Make yourself needed, whether it be in baseball or basketball, whatever it is. When I say that, if you don't have power, learn to move the ball. Advanced runners, that's your job. That's what you get paid for. That's how you make a career. And it worked out very well for me.
So you learned to be a spray hitter. You could spray the ball different places.
Correct.
And so when you're got a guy on second, you can hit the ball to the right side. And
You
advance
better
him.
get him to third base. That's why the Cardinals in '64 and the Pirates in '61, because they never left that man on second base with nobody out. That's winning baseball.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So I think the game has changed over the years. You know, you got this power, these power pitchers throwing high 90s, mid 90s, and so forth. And you got this specialization, and they're doing the pitch counts. I mean, I interviewed Bob Friend. He said, we didn't care about pitch counts. We thought that the more you threw, it made your arm stronger. And so what changes have you seen in your years when you played and today?
The long ball.
The long ball.
Yeah, first of all, and think about it. Every ballpark they built smaller because Joe Fan wants to see the home run. I'd much rather see somebody play small ball than sit back and wait for the home run. I played on 2 teams that won world championships. Neither one of them were real power-hitting ball clubs, but they could all hit. And they all moved runners and made things happen. Good defense, throwing to the right base, good base running.
Pitching.
Those little things are very, very important to win a pennant.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just said something about make yourself needed. And you're saying from a baseball standpoint, that means what? Don't strike out and spray the ball around if you're not going to hit it over the. Is that what you mean?
Yep.
Now, how about in the field?
Same thing. Knowing the hitters. I knew I didn't have great speed. Even Mazeroski said it in an interview. He said, I never worried about positions. Dick studied every hitter in the National League because that's my job. I had to know how they were going to hit Bob Gibson or how they're going to hit Vernon Law or how they're going to hit. And I studied hitters. I had to have some kind of help when I knew I wasn't very fast.
So you used this.
Correct.
And you prepared.
Oh, yes.
And so does the same apply to basketball? Make yourself needed?
Well, yes, because I was fortunate enough to lead the country in scoring and assists in one season, my senior year at Duke.
From an offensive standpoint, what kind of threat were you? Like an outside shooter and you drive, or what did you do?
Everywhere.
What do you mean?
First of all, I set a record for the most free throws ever made in an NCAA game because I did a lot of driving and drew a lot of fouls, and yet I shot a lot of shots from the three-point land, which today I would love to have had.
Yeah, you scored more points.
I worked the defense because I had a coach by the name of Red Auerbach when I was at Duke that taught me more basketball in 2.5 months than all the rest of my coaches put together.
You talk about basketball coaches.
Yes.
He was at Duke?
Yes.
Well, he did pretty well for himself in the Boston Celtics.
He sure did.
Yeah. So he was. And so, what were the things that he taught you that served you as a basketball player?
That was an everyday chore. Practice was at 3 o'clock. He and I had 1 to 3, just one-on-one. Defense. He was just. I mean, I just can't describe how much influence he had on me. Even when I played for the Pistons, and he was coaching the Celtics, I had a bad night. And we were on the train together. I was coming to Pittsburgh, and they were going to Boston. And I knocked on his compartment door, and he said, "Come on in, Dick, I've been waiting for you." And I walked in, and he ripped me up one side and down the other. Forgot everything the old man taught you. And then we went over the whole bit, and he had shut me down himself defensively with the way he set things up. And then, thank God, I had a chance to react, and I beat him the second time.
So maybe it wasn't in his best interest to give you that advice, but I guess you guys had a relationship.
Right till the day Red died.
Really?
Very, very dear friend of mine.
Really?
Lived in Washington, D.C. Just a fantastic man in every way.
He's a legend in basketball.
He sure is.
I mean, I don't know who's accomplished what he does, but he made the Boston Celtics what they are.
He sure did.
I mean, they were a dynasty. So
both as a coach and as a general manager, both.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So what made you're a Pittsburgh kid, and you're a good baseball and basketball player to a point where people want you to play for them in college. What made you, I mean, I'm sure did Pitt offer?
No.
But Duke offered.
I offered myself to Duke. Let's put it that way.
How did it work back then? Like I have a nephew now that he's a football kid, and he got 33 offers, and he just accepted to go to Notre Dame. He's going to play football. So how did it work back then?
First of all, I didn't have that many big offers. And it just so happened in April, my senior year in 1948, there was an article, not in Sports Illustrated, but in Sport Magazine.
I know that magazine.
And it said they play big league baseball at Duke University. And the whole article was on Coach Jack Coombs, who had graduated from Colby College up in Maine, went to the athletics in Pittsburgh, Connie Mack, and the great athletic teams, and then with the Dodgers. And it was kind of fascinating to me, and I mentioned it to my older brother, and he checked with a fraternity brother of his and said, "Do we know anybody at Duke?" He said, "You know him as well as I do. He was a fraternity brother of ours called John Michaelosa, and he's coaching the Steelers." Called John, and John called down at Duke, and they invited me to Duke and let me scrimmage against the varsity. And they gave me a basketball scholarship because they didn't give baseball scholarships.
So for one scrimmage, so you reached out.
2 scrimmages. We were there 2 days.
You reached out 2 scrimmages, and now you got a full scholarship to Duke.
Well, first of all, when I walked into that place, if you can picture this.
What place?
How long ago 1948 was. And it's still one of the top arenas in America to walk into what's now Cameron Indoor Stadium and just look at it. Before I even set foot on it, I looked at it and I said, boy, this is where I'd love to play my basketball. I never saw an arena like that. There was nothing in the state of Pennsylvania even close. And I was fortunate enough to get offered a scholarship. There were 4 of us from Western Pennsylvania. Dayton Allen from McKeesport and I both accepted at Duke. The other 2, one went to the Naval Academy, and the other one went to Westminster.
You remember who they were?
Gursky and Hallis.
I see. And 4 of you were down there scrimmaging.
We were down there to visit the campus.
And the scrimmage.
I don't know whether you were allowed to do that in those days, but we did.
You did. So Cameron Indoor, as it is today, is similar to what it was then?
Exactly the same.
Really?
It's been remodeled with chairs and so forth, but it's seated at 8,800 when I was there, and it seats 9,000 now. So that's how much they changed it.
Well, when I was taking my daughter to visits for some colleges, we went to Duke. And I told her, I said, I want to walk into Cameron Indoor because I'm a big basketball fan and baseball fan. And so I thought, how are we going to get in? So I said, we're going to just go and see if we can get in. The door was open. So we walked right in, and they were having a volleyball camp in the summer, and they're teaching these girls how to play volleyball. And I walked all over that place. And they got some things hanging up of you there, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw that. And I told my son, I said, he's from Pittsburgh, Brian. He's from Pittsburgh. You know, I know we're in North Carolina, but this is Pittsburgh. And, you know, I have to say this. You know, I was telling you before, my father was a Pittsburgh policeman. He worked in Oakland. He worked a lot of games at Forbes Field. And unfortunately, you know, he worked the Martin Luther King riots, and he died at the age of 42 of a heart attack. It was some hard times back then. But he took me to Forbes Field, and we'd walk underneath the field. Somehow we'd come up right near the visitors' dugout, and we'd walk down. He knew the ushers, and I sat behind the visitors' dugout, and I saw Willie Mays and Don Drysdale and all you guys playing. And, you know, I kind of idolized Roberto Clemente. You've probably heard that a few times. But he really loved the Pirates. And he passed away in 1971. And I kind of believe people that pass away still are looking down. And I think he's enjoying me talking to you because he was a big Pirate fan. And he made me a big Pirate fan. And so what I want to know is, when you're playing at Duke and you're trying to, did you think that you had a chance to play professional baseball or basketball? What were you thinking?
They did an article in the Post-Gazette here 2 or 3 weeks ago when I was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Dapper Dan. When I was in 4th grade, I told my sister I was going to play Major League Baseball, I was going to play professional basketball, and I wasn't ever going to play in the minor leagues when I was in 4th grade. And so help me, that's a true story.
And that's what you did.
Correct.
That's unheard of. That's unheard of. But in 4th grade, somehow you came up with that.
Yeah.
Maybe it was those older brothers.
Probably.
Yeah. But that's incredible. So you're at Duke, and I think there's a story that you were invited to a Pirate game with Branch Rickey, and you met him, right?
Well, there's more to it than that.
Okay.
I was playing semi-pro baseball in Virginia, and Rex Bowen was a scout in that area, and he stopped by, said to me, "Are you going back to Pittsburgh before you return to Duke?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Well, here's my card. Mr. Rickey would like you to work out with the Pirates." I was home for about 2.5 weeks. So sure enough, I called. Why not? I was just a youngster, had the chance to work out with the Pirates. So I worked out the first morning, and Mr. Rickey said, "Why don't you come back and hit with the extra men and dress with the Pirates?" Wow, I'm really living. I'm a 20-year-old kid working out with the Pirates. So I did the same thing for 2 days. The third day he said to me, "Do your mom and dad like baseball?" And I said, "Yeah, my father loves baseball. So I'd like them to come to my booth with me tonight, and after you work out with the Pirates, come up and sit with us." This is the third day, and sure enough, my mom and dad were sitting behind me in his box, and I was sitting with Mr. Rickey. And about the third inning, he turned to me and said, "Young man, if you and your father will sign a contract tonight, I'll start you against Cincinnati tomorrow night." I said, "Mr. Rickey, that's not even fair. You know I want to play Major League Baseball. But I owe my senior year to Duke University, and I'm going back to play baseball and basketball. But I promise you one thing," and there was no draft in those days. I said, "If you make the same offer to me when my eligibility is up, I promise you I'll sign with the Pirates." He shook hands. He said, "You have a deal." I never heard from him again, ever, until I got back from the College World Series. The following June, that was Sunday night. He signed me on Monday. I joined the Pirates on Tuesday, pinch hit on Wednesday, and started every game the rest of the season.
What year was that?
1952, my rookie year.
Oh my, that story's almost unbelievable. but you can't make this stuff up. So you graduate from Duke, but then didn't the NBA come calling and the Army?
That's another thing. I only played a half a season my sophomore year. So I had to finish up on my degree. That's how everything broke out so well. I played with the Pirates, and I returned to Duke where I was carrying the lightest schedule in the world. I had 3 classes on Monday, 3 on Wednesday, and 3 on Friday. And I knew I'd been drafted by the Pistons, but Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Durham, North Carolina are a long way off. And I had cut to finish the season with the Pirates. Now, at Duke then, you were only allowed 3 cuts. The 4th time you cut yourself out of school. My father would have killed me if I hadn't graduated from Duke. I had good grades. Well, the Pistons flew me out to Fort Wayne. I played in a couple exhibition games. They signed me to a contract. I said, oh, okay. So I played 2 weekends, and then I got grounded in Detroit. So I quit. I said, I only played 4 games in the NBA. And a week later, they called me back, and they said, we understand you can't cut yourself out of school, but we got it all taken care of. I said, what do you mean? I have an 8-10 class. On Monday morning, I play a Sunday night in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They said, we have a private plane that's going to fly you back and forth. So sure enough, I played 31 games after that in a private plane. And instead of just flying to Fort Wayne, I would play on my own team on Monday night in Durham, fly to New York and play against the Knicks on Tuesday, fly back and go to class on Wednesday. It was just fiasco, and I never had more fun in my life. Never practiced a day with the Pistons, just had a great time.
So this 4th grade statement you made, you did play in the NBA, you did play in the major leagues, and you never played in the minors.
Correct.
So wait a minute, what I'm a little confused is, you said it was your sophomore year. Were you done playing at Duke when you were playing for them, for the Pistons?
Yes, that was after I played with the Pirates. That was the winter of 52, 53. And the minute I graduated, Uncle Sam had plans for me.
You got drafted.
I was in the Army.
So where did you go in the Army?
I was stationed at Fort Belvoir in Virginia.
Yeah?
And we were the only team ever to win the All-Army and All-Army baseball in 1 year.
Well, what was the Army like for you? Did you have to do Army stuff?
I didn't for a while.
Because you were playing baseball.
But then all of a sudden, there was a congressional investigation, and I was right in the middle of it.
And what was the investigation?
Athletes in the service not carrying their weight. So I played soldier the last 11, 12, 13 months.
What was that like?
Digging ditches, it wasn't fun.
Did you have to go to boot camp?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Sure.
Do you think it made you tougher?
Not particularly, no.
But you served
Because
your
we were all in good shape then.
Yeah. Well, were there other athletes with you?
Like when the investigation came up, Belvoir we had our own private basic training class. There was a sports information director, 3 basketball players, and 17 football players. Al Davis, incidentally, happened to have been the football coach at that time.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. So how good were your teams at Duke basketball-wise?
At Duke?
Yeah.
We were 24-6 my senior year, and ranked in the top 10 till we lost to North Carolina State in the finals of the ACC or in Southern Conference tournament. 24-6. Our final ranking was 12th in the nation.
And you were an All-American twice?
Twice in baseball, and I only played 2 years of baseball, and twice in basketball because I had left my sophomore year.
And you were the National Player of the Year in basketball. Is that because you led the country in scoring?
Yeah, and assists.
And assists. Now, Duke's now with Pitt in the ACC, so that must be interesting for you. So do you know Mike Krzyzewski?
Yes.
What's your
I have-
relationship with him, and what do you think of him?
I have tremendous respect for Coach K. He's been a class man, and I had to go back to speak at Duke for one of their banquets, and I did the history of Duke basketball up to my career. And at the end, I added the fact that I now broadcast basketball for the University of Pittsburgh, and I travel around the country. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and you basketball players, nobody has more respect for the program here at the university, at Duke University, than the people in college athletics. It's been a clean program. There's never been an NCAA investigation, and that's all because of Coach K. And look at the championships he's had. He's a very special person.
So he's as good of a guy as he is a coach.
He sure is.
And
He's a graduate of the United States Military Academy, which says something about him.
yeah, it does. I think he coached under Bobby Knight.
He did.
Yeah, yeah.
He played for him, and then he coached for him at Indiana after he came out of the service. And Bobby was very instrumental in getting him the job at West Point and later the job at Duke.
So when you see kids that want to grow up and be athletes, what do you tell kids? I mean, what have you told kids in your day that want to be athletes?
I don't know exactly how I want to tell kids this because the modern day youngster doesn't live the way I was raised. My father was so strict all through my high school days. I was never allowed out after basketball practice. I came home, that was it. I was allowed out Friday night and Saturday night. Sunday night I had to go to church. And I went through 3 years of this. And to have a cigarette or a beer in college or high school was unheard of for me. I know this is no longer true of athletes because I'm around them a lot now. Now, I had a few beers, in fact, a lot of beers when I played baseball. But my younger days, my whole life revolved around athletics. And I was hell-bent that I was going to do what I told my sister in 4th grade I was going to do, and that was get to the major leagues in 2 sports.
So you were on a mission.
Yes.
And your father was very strict. So did you then, when you got to go play and go leave home and go to Duke and go to Fort Wayne, I guess you ran into some people that come from places that weren't as strict.
Very much so.
So how did you blend with that?
I didn't have any problems accepting that. I still did it my way until I got a little bit older. I mean, athletics were my life, and it worked out extremely well. I was able to raise 3 daughters, of whom I'm very proud, send all 3 of them through college. They came out of school not owing a dime, and have all been successful, and I'm very proud of that. And had it not been for athletics, it would have never happened.
So what are they doing? What do your daughters do?
Well, one owns a real estate company in Durham. The second one has been teaching grade school for nigh on to 30 years now.
Where?
And the baby runs my golf course. She's the manager, and she's the golfer.
Where does the one teach at?
Woodland Hills.
Woodland Hills?
Yes.
Which is Swissville.
Sure.
Yeah. So what grade? What grade does she teach?
5th and 1st, both.
5th and 1st. Now, let's talk about your golf course, because I think you said that your daughter wants to talk a little about the golf course.
Oh, sure.
So
she's the boss lady up there.
Yeah,
now.
so she's your boss?
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be like to have the daughter
When you think
as a
about
boss.
it, we're celebrating our 50th year.
Are
this
you?
year. Yes. So all 3 of those girls grew up working there. They were all waitresses. In fact, it was always funny in the mornings. Every Sunday morning, my eldest daughter, Tracy, did all the cooking, and the other two were the waitresses for the guys who were going out early in the morning to play golf. Jerry Lynch was my partner. He had twin boys who worked in the pro shop. So all those girls did was end up feeding the boys eggs if they made a mistake. And it was a great relationship. We raised our families right there at the golf course years ago. And we've all grown up. They all still love the golf course, and so do I.
What got you into that? What made you want to do that?
Jerry and Lynch were very, very close friends when we played with the Pirates. And then we were in business together. We had a couple apartment buildings. And neither one of us really had the desire to stay in baseball as a manager. So we decided we're going to build a golf course. So in 1964, after we beat the Yankees in the World Series, Jerry and I planned this for a couple of years. We found this property, laid the golf course out, brought in a construction company, and on Christmas Eve of 1964, Jerry and I pulled up on that hill and looked out in the woods, and there was all this big equipment and this fire growing, and we stopped the car because we were driving it out there in cold weather. And I said, well, Jerry, we're into it now. There's no turning back. And it's been a great experience. I've met so many nice people, and so many people have become my good friends up there. And it's been a great relationship, a lot of heartaches and a real struggle, but overall it's been a great 50 years.
Who designed the course?
We did. We walked it for 2.5 months before we bought the property. And had the golf course laid out.
What did you know about designing a golf course?
Just a couple dumb baseball players that stumbled into what now is the reputation of an excellent golf course.
So that's up in Arnold Palmer territory.
I even said that at the Dapper Dan banquet. I said only a couple of dumb baseball players would go out and build a golf course in Arnold Palmer's backyard. That's exactly what we did.
And what did he think about it?
He's always been very gracious to both Jerry and myself.
Well, he has one too, doesn't he?
Oh, well, he owns Bay Hill in Orlando, and he also owns Latrobe Country Club, and he's been the playing pro out of Laurel Valley for years and years and years.
Boy, what a great golfer he was.
Oh, yes. And a great person to go with it.
So you're friends with him?
Yes.
What kind of guy is he?
Good guy.
Is he?
Good. Very gracious, very friendly. In fact, I've thanked him a jillion times. He, more than any other person in the world, to people that own a golf course like we do, we owe everything to him. He brought people into golf. The modern day player doesn't bring them in like Arnold and Jack did. And maybe part of it was their association with President Eisenhower and then with this president. But they have done things to promote golf more, that the modern day player is so methodical and so good, but doesn't seem to have the personality that those two had that brought people into wanting to play golf.
What was their relationship with Eisenhower?
Oh, Arnold played with Dwight David Eisenhower a lot. Don't you remember when he was president, he used to be hitting practice balls out in front of the White House all the time. He never was a very good player, but he sure loved the game.
Yeah.
And it helped promote the game of golf.
Well, I've been to several Opens, U.S. Opens at Oakmont. And a friend of my father, after he passed, got tickets and took me to one. He was such a big Arnold Palmer fan that we had to follow Arnold. So we became part of Arnie's Army. And he just, you're right, he had such a personality.
His charisma was unreal.
He had great charisma. And Jack Nicklaus was just unbelievable, too. And So we followed Arnold at the Open in Oakland, or Oakmont, and that army was big. and I said to Mr. Gallo, I said, can I go see somebody else a little bit? He goes, well, I'll give you 2 holes. And then I saw Jack Nicklaus and Tom Weiskopf. And I thought, I love Arnold, but I just want to see a couple other people too. But anyway, it was a thrill to watch him golf. And so he usually goes to the Masters, doesn't he?
He always hits the first ball off Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and Arnold Palmer. This is the first year Arnold is not doing that. He didn't do that this morning.
No.
And by the way, you talk about the crowd with Arnold Palmer?
Yeah.
In 1961, after we won the World Championship, Bing Crosby owned a piece of the Pirates. I ended up playing with Arnold Palmer in the Bing Crosby Pro-Am. That was the most intimidating sports event I have ever experienced in my whole life.
See, I was going to ask that question, and you beat me to it. What, you're playing for the Pistons in the NBA, the Pirates, the Cardinals, and a few other teams in the major leagues. What was the most intimidating? You're saying, was it Bay Hill?
No, it was Pebble Beach.
Pebble Beach.
I'm telling you, I'll never forget I was so nervous on that first tee. And I thought, well, all I have to do is hit it good here, and it'll be over. No, that's not the way it was. I'm playing with Arnold Palmer. He's golfer of the year. They followed us every place we went.
You wanted him to go somewhere else.
Just leave me alone. And I was intimidated, unbelievably. But
how did you do?
Not very well, but I did very well the first 12 holes. After that, Arnold carried me around for 3 or 4 days. But we did make the cut, so that was something new.
So you played with him for 4 days.
Yes. And to make it worse, back in those days, the amateur played from the same markers as the pros. You didn't get to move up to the white markers. You were back, oh. It was most intimidating. Take my word for it.
What was so good about his golf game?
His what?
His golf game. What was so good about it?
It was just, he was one of the most unbelievably great competitors you'd ever want to be around. You could just sense it. And he had that burning desire to win. And just the way he putted, he didn't lag the putts ever. He charged every putt all the way around for 54 holes. And it was fascinating to watch him, I'll tell you. He's a magnificent competitor.
And you became friends with him?
Yes.
Did he ever play at your golf course?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
He had the record there for a while, and Rocco Media took it away.
What was the record?
His record was 4 under. Rocco finally shot 5 under.
Oh.
But those guys are so good.
Well, where's Rocco from?
Greensburg.
Greensburg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, talk about great competitors. Let's go back to your basketball days. Who were some people you played with or against that were great players that you can remember?
I guess Bob Cousy was my idol, and of course, I go back so far, people don't even remember the year with Mike and Mickelson and Pollard, and the Minnesota Lakers were winning the championships. Same with the Rochester Royals. There were so many players that I looked up to in those days, and I was only able to play that 1 year against them. But it was really a thrill. And I never had the desire or I was never asked to even practice with the Pistons. I just went in, put a uniform on, and played. It made it even more fun. And ironically, those veterans on the Pistons really treated me extremely well.
Really?
Oh yeah, I had some big nights against them and with them, and they just gathered me right in. It was a great experience.
So you played against Bob Cousy.
Yes.
Was he trouble to deal with?
Uh, he, to be very frank with you, he made an ass of me the first time I played against him.
What do you mean?
That's when I went in on the train to ask Coach Arbach what the heck happened. And they were beating us, and I was pressing in full court. And he's such a marvelous ball handler. His hands are about like this. They're so much bigger than a normal person's. And as usual, he put it behind his back and went behind. But he wasn't satisfied with just taking it over the line. He stopped before he got to the timeline so he could do it the second time. And I never forgot it.
Why would he do that?
He built up a duel between he and I.
Oh, really?
And he was out to prove it. But when we turned it around the second time, in all my life in sports, I've never, ever, ever believed in showing somebody up, but I did Bob Cousy.
Did you?
I did the same thing.
Did you?
And after I made the pass and the guy laid it up, he threw the ball in and he said, "Okay, Dick, we're even." So he knew what I did and he knew what he had done to me.
Well, so when he made you look bad that one game and you're on the train with Red Auerbach, did he tell you what you did wrong?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And so that came back to bite him.
Sure. He wrote it in his book that I read him the second time after he gave me the message.
Does he regret telling you that?
No. That's not the way Red was. He's the kind of person, he loved teaching and he loved the game of basketball. I mean, he was just that type man, as great a competitor as he was. And of course, I was kind of his fair-haired boy, too.
So you got these kids that love basketball. What would you tell kids today if you want to play basketball or higher levels? What would you tell kids?
Just play and play and play. I mean, you can't play too much. Plus the fact you want to play with better players because you don't get better playing against people you're better than. In other words, I was fortunate when I was in high school because I was playing with Pitt basketball players. So I had a chance to play with older people. You don't get better playing against people you are better than to start with. And try to upgrade yourself and play in better. As you mentioned in our conversation before, Coons threw hard, but go up there and face him. That's how you get to hit that good fastball.
That's right. That's right. And it sounds like it all started with your older brothers.
Sure.
So you got your older brothers throwing hard at you and you're playing against them. But then when you got against people your own age,
it was easy.
It was easy.
That's right.
So if you don't have an older brother, go find some older people. Go find some better people.
Play with the better kids, that's correct.
So let's talk a little bit about Pitt basketball. So you've 37 years.
Yes.
Have you been with Bill Hillgrove that long?
Correct, yes.
I would imagine that develops a friendship.
Oh, first of all, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, there has not been one single game in that 37 years that I haven't been just proud just to sit down next to that man. He is, without a doubt, the ultimate professional in every way. He is the best play-by-play announcer I have ever heard or been around. You just have no idea how good he was and how good he is, period.
And was it hard you're a great basketball player, great baseball player, you open up this golf course, but now you have to go on the air and talk about the game. What kind of transition was that for you?
Bill led me into it really well. I mean, he was not only a great announcer, but he was a great teacher. And when it came to basketball, he always said, you know, we discussed it when we'd be driving to a game, and talked about certain things that, I don't know, I guess if they were basketball things that he hadn't realized or something, little things like if a three-point shooting club, you're going to play all man-to-man because you aren't going to play a zone because they're always going to get three-point open shots against the zone. I mean, specific things that go on in the game of basketball.
So how have you enjoyed broadcasting for 37 years at the University of Pittsburgh basketball?
I loved every minute of it.
Really?
And I've said this so many times, the kids keep me young at my age.
How so?
Just being around them. They've been, you know, they've been great kids. We haven't had any kids in trouble. They've been walking out with their diplomas, which is what it's all about. And Jamie Dixon, of whom I had a tremendous amount of respect, he didn't have any kids in trouble. They graduated and went on and did fine in life. And I wish them the best of everything at TCU. Now we're going into a new era at the University of Pittsburgh. Scott Barnes, a class gentleman who's now the athletic director, and their new coach. I'm sure everything will work out fine because this is a pretty good basketball team coming back next year.
Did Jamie Dixon taking another job, did that surprise you?
Greatly. In fact, I think everyone was shocked when the plane landed coming back from St. Louis in the NCAA tournament. We had no idea.
How did he tell
Then
the
we
team?
heard it that night on
Did
television, radio.
he tell the team?
I don't know how he handled that at all, really. And none of us have talked to him since the game when we lost to Wisconsin.
Yeah. How much longer do you want to be the voice of Pitt basketball?
As long as they want me.
Really?
If I can speak, and I know I'll still love the game of basketball, God willing, I hope I can do it again this coming year. I love the game of basketball, and as I said, I look forward to it every year, and the kids, I look forward to being with them. They're very, very special.
So I imagine you enjoy it when they play Duke also, and you see Coach K.
Oh, sure, always.
So that really brings a whole lot of things to you, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
When's the first time you announced at Cameron, indoor, at Duke?
I've never broadcast there.
Really?
No.
They haven't played there. They've always played at Pitt.
No, they played there 2 years ago, and I was in the hospital at the time.
I see.
So I missed that game. So, and the worst part about it is, I guess, they put a program with my picture on the front of it. Everything was set up for it, and then I ended up in the hospital. Didn't make the trip.
Well, there's going to be other opportunity, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah,
God
yeah.
willing, I will be.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Oh, I want to talk about the Pirates and you playing for the Pirates. And I have a frame picture in my living room of people. I don't know if it's from the top of the Cathedral of Learning, and there's people watching, and you could see Forbes Field when Mazeroski hit the home run. Hit the home run. So before we get to that, did you think that year that the team, you had a chance that year to do something special, 1960?
For sure.
And what made you think that?
Well, first of all, ironically, we discussed this with Bob Friend, Bill Verdon, and Bob Skinner and myself. It was unrehearsed, and we all came up with the same answer. We had finished second in 58, stumbled a little in 59, finished fourth, which wasn't bad considering how bad we'd been before. But we opened the season at Forest Field against Cincinnati, of whom we thought was going to be one of the key contenders for the championship. Won the first 3 games. Sunday afternoon, the second game of doubleheader, we're down 5-0 in the 9th inning. And I remember it so vividly. Fred Hutchison brought in a left-hander, Bill Henry, to just give him some work, figured he'd get 3 outs. Well, we scored 3 runs. Now it's 4 runs. It's 5-4 with 2 outs in the 9th inning. And they brought in a kid by the name of Williams. And I remember he hit me right on the fist. And I rolled the ball in the hole for a base hit. And no one got to first base, and Bob Skinner hit a home run. And we won the game 6-5 and swept Cincinnati. And that game was the game that all of us felt was the key game that turned the whole season around for us. We never thought we were supposed to lose in late innings after that. Remember, we came from behind 35 to 40 times in 60 from the 7th inning on to win.
And when you had Elroy Face, was he your closer?
He was what?
Was Elroy Face your closer, the guy? Yeah.
Sure was, in every way. The best that ever pitched, in my opinion. I think he's the greatest relief pitcher of all time.
What do you think made him so good?
He just had a heart that big. And he wasn't like today's pitchers. He might pitch 2 innings tonight, and tomorrow night he might pitch an inning and a half, and the following night gets you 3 outs in the 9th inning. I mean, Elroy never had a sore arm. And he was such a competitor. It was unbelievable. And in fact, I've even said, when Friend and Law and Face became great pitchers, we became a great ball club. We learned how to win.
Who were some of the leaders on that team, would you say?
Polk, Verdon, Maz. I mean, that team didn't need a manager. They had, I remember Gene Mauch always said, they were the only team in baseball that had 6 out of their 8 regulars knew exactly what to do without ever getting a sign from the third base coach.
But Danny Murtaugh was your manager.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what was he like?
The best.
Why do you say that?
Oh, just the contrast, because we had Bobby Bregan. And God bless Bobby Bregan. He hated me, and yet he really taught me how to play the game. I have tremendous respect for Bobby Bregan. And he later, in my career, came and apologized to me and said, "You're my MVP." And he said, "I never gave you a fair shake or a good word, but you played your heart out for me, and I was 100% wrong about you."
That must have been good to hear.
It sure was. But Danny just was a great teacher, but most of all, handled people extremely well. That's why we were a winner. And I'm talking about each and every person, he knew how to handle them. Great job.
Clemente was young then, wasn't he?
Pardon me?
Clemente was a young player then, wasn't he?
Bobby was 24, 25, 26 at the most. His rookie year was 1955. And a great, great, great talent. Probably the best God-given talent I ever saw on a baseball diamond.
He had his arm, he had a cannon. He could hit for power, he could hit for average.
He could hit anyway. He was just a magnificent athlete in every way.
Did he have trouble with the language and things like that?
Well, he struggled when he first got here, yes. But he got better and better and better.
So you know you're growing up in Swissvale, and you don't see maybe some of the diversity. Maybe you'd had diversity in Swissvale, but you saw a lot of different people come from a lot of different places. What was that like for you?
We all got along pretty well. There was that period when we would, in Florida, we'd have to stop someplace so Clemente and Mejias and those guys could get something to eat. They couldn't go inside when we were there. And they didn't stay in the hotels with us. They stayed in a different part of town, which wasn't good, but it finally worked out, but it took a while to get that straightened around.
How did that strike you? So you're a white Caucasian baseball player, and you're playing and you're going to different cities, and they're telling Clemente and Mejias, you can't eat here, you can't stay here.
This was only in spring training. Once the season started, they stayed in the hotels with us.
I see. So this was in Florida.
Yeah.
How did that strike you?
Well, first of all, you weren't that conscious of it because of the situation. Most of the time, they wouldn't take them on the road because of that, rather than force them to go eat in a different area. If you know what I'm saying. When we traveled, we'd stop and maybe go inside to get something to eat, or we wouldn't stop. We'd come right back to Fort Myers.
But I'm sure growing up when you grew up, you heard prejudice.
Oh, yeah.
But then you had to play with people that didn't look like you. So when you heard the prejudice and then you're playing with them, how did that work for you?
I don't know. It never crossed my mind there was a problem one way or the other.
Yeah, you were just out playing a game.
That's right.
And this is your teammate.
That's exactly what we were. We were playing a game.
And it's your teammates.
And that, to me, sports is the way that all cleared up.
You think sports helped that?
Oh, very much so, yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of that. So what pitchers gave you the biggest problems?
Drysdale, Cardwell, any of those guys that came from out here and threw hard. Plus the fact, they were the guys that always loved to separate your head from your shoulders, too. Those sidearmers. The rest of the guys you didn't have any problems handling. But those guys, Drysdale hit me on the hand, and I couldn't hold the bat in 63, and in 63, I mean, was the year that Cardwell broke my rib here, because he and I were traded for one another. And I knew it was coming, and I forgot all about it. I was told before the game, and I forgot all about it. Walked up there, and he broke my rib.
I mean, you were told you were being traded for him?
No, I was being told that he was going to hit me.
Oh. I understand you were almost traded for Roger Maris.
Correct.
What happened there?
The way I get the story, I didn't have any factual, that the trade was already made, and the Kansas City owner said, just give us a second, go outside the room and we'll settle this right away. They walked outside, and Danny Murtaugh turned to Joe and said, I don't want to trade Groat. And I guess that's how it was called off.
But you were traded.
Pardon me?
You were traded.
That's what they said. And ironically, Roger was traded to the Yankees. He won the MVP in the American League, and I won it in the National League.
That's unbelievable that they're talking about trading the MVPs. So, but who were you traded for, and when were you traded when that eventually actually did happen?
I went to St. Louis.
For who?
For Don Cardwell and Julio Gotay, and it was a left-handed pitcher from the Dominican went with me to St. Louis.
Now, you're a Pittsburgh guy. You're born and raised in Pittsburgh. You love everything about Pittsburgh. You just won the World Series with Pittsburgh. You're the MVP with Pittsburgh. And then you got traded. How did you feel?
I was heartbroken. That was the most miserable winter I spent in my baseball career. And yet, sometimes the grass can be greener on the other side of the street. I ended up hitting second in front of Stan Musial the following year. I never had such a great year in my life. It's the only time I ever had over 200 hits, led the league in doubles, finished second to Sandy Koufax. We finished second. It was a great year.
Was it hard to not feel resentment when that happened?
I did. I resented Joe Brown for trading me.
For how long?
Very much so. Probably up to today.
Really?
Sure.
Because
This is my home. I had no desire to ever be traded. I never wanted to leave this great city.
did you ever talk to him after that?
At last reunion, Joe was dying, and I buried the hatchet with him.
Really?
Well, I slept better that night than carrying that resentment as long as I'd carried it.
So you talked it through.
Pardon me?
You two talked about it.
Yes.
And he knew you were upset
Oh, he knew I didn't like him.
because of that.
Sure, sure. And he said, I swear you, Dick, I never said that. I never said that. Well, he made the statement when he traded me that I couldn't play shortstop on a pennant winner again.
You were the MVP.
This was when he traded me. And that's why it meant so much for me to win the World Championship in '64 at St. Louis. And that year, I got more votes than any player in either league for the All-Star game, and that's when it meant something, when the players voted, not the fans.
What was St. Louis like?
Oh, great. It's the best organization in baseball, bar none.
Do you think still today?
Pardon me?
Do you think still today?
I'm sure still today.
They're.
I can just tell the way we went back for the '64 reunion here a year or two ago, just the way we were treated. Yeah, you and a guess. So I made a deal with him that this is my last go, Ron. Can I take my other daughter with me and I'll pay the transportation and the room and so on and so forth. I got the check out to pay him, and the guy said to me, I just happened to be able to fill that into my budget. So they paid for both daughters and their trip and the whole bit. I mean,
Nice.
They're just a first-class organization. They have been. And I will say the Pirates have treated us, the alumni, extremely well with the new ownership.
Really?
Yes. Very well.
So I guess when they change ownerships, things change.
Yes.
But the new
And
ownership's good.
they've hired Joe Billadu, who's done a magnificent job of taking care of the alumni. And obviously they have to have management behind them or they can't do the favorable things they've done for us.
Do people still recognize you?
No, not very often.
But when they did, what was it like? I mean, you played in the top of the top. What was it like to be recognized and people think you're all special?
First of all, it's extremely nice to be recognized. And, so many people have said to me, I can't believe how nice you are to people when they ask for your autograph. I said, why not? Somebody wants my autograph. I'm glad they want it. I said, you have to work at being an asshole. And why not be nice to people? That's beyond my comprehension. That why wouldn't you be nice to people that are nice to you?
Yeah, I feel what you're saying. It doesn't cost anything to be nice.
I agree.
It doesn't cost anything to be kind. And I'm just so happy that you're with us today because I know my father's enjoying this interview from up here.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I want to go a little bit to St. Louis again. Well, who were the great players you played with there, besides Stan Musial?
Besides Stan Musial?
Gibson?
Oh, boy. Gibson, Tim McCarver, Ken Boyer, Bill White, Kurt Flood, Lou Brock. I mean, that was a great baseball team.
They're always good.
Oh, yeah.
To this day.
Yeah,
Last year, they got a bunch of injuries, and I think they led the league in wins.
they did, but they aren't going to do that this year. I watched them the other day. They don't have the punch this year they've had the last couple of years. So, this Pirate Club is very good.
I met Adam Wainwright in a restaurant right after the opener the other day.
Oh, did you?
And I said, I have such respect for your organization and you. And he said, thank you. I said, you guys are tough on the Pirates. And he goes, they got me pretty good today, though.
He's a nice guy.
He's a great guy. He was so nice.
They are.
Really nice.
They're a good bunch of guys.
So I guess some of your heart goes to them.
Oh, sure. If the Pirates don't win, I root for them. I mean, they treated me so well, it was unreal.
Were the fans different in the two cities?
Great fans, very much so. Cardinal fans are in fact, there's one place I still go back and do a memorabilia show once every 4 or 5 years. I've been gone out of there 50-some years now, and I'm going back in May.
Are you?
They don't forget their baseball players. Now, the football franchise is gone already.
Right. That's a shame. It's a shame. But so baseball just rules in that city.
Sure.
It's the king. Let's talk about the series against the Yankees in 1960. I don't know. I was 3 years old, but they had to be heavily favored.
They were.
And they outscored you guys by a ton of runs in the series.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. No, I'm serious.
Well, some of those games, they just blasted you.
It's so funny because I've even thought about this laying in bed a couple of times because I remember it so vividly. We had a 2-run lead, 6-4 in the ninth inning with 2 outs and a man on first base, a time run at the plate. They hit a ground ball to Mazeroski. When he threw the ball to me, when I caught it right here and released it, I said, we can beat these guys. It was a double play, and I knew. And
this was in the first game?
Yes, we won 6-4. But what nobody seems to realize when they talk about all those runs they scored is, to a baseball player, there's nothing easier than going home and laying your head down and going to sleep than when you get your brains beat out. You don't go in the locker room and say, boy, if you'd gotten a base hit, or if I'd have gotten a base hit, if he'd have made that play. There's none of that. In fact, we won the first game 6-4. They beat us 16-3 the second game. Mantle had hit 2 home runs by this time. I missed the home run he hit in the 8th or 9th inning, whichever it was. I'm in a whirlpool because I'm coming off the broken wrist. Around the corner came my roommate, Bill Verdon and Mazeroski, both of them, and they came in and said, boy, Dick, you aren't going to believe it. I said, what? They said, you missed the granddaddy of all. He said, Mantle hit a ball over that right field wall you will not believe. That's all anybody talks about after the game. So you go home, you go to sleep. You got beat. We won every game we could win. That's when you don't sleep. 3-2, 5-2, 10-9.
So they didn't sleep because they lost all the close games.
That's my point.
Yeah.
12-0 and 10-0. We were never in those 2 games.
So you're in the first game. You turn a double play, and at that moment you said we can beat these guys.
Yes, I did, because it was a joke the Pirates playing the Yankees, supposedly. That's the way.
That's how big of
everything
an
came.
underdog you were.
Pardon me?
You were a big underdog.
We were, no doubt about it.
You're saying it was a joke.
It was.
And so nobody expected you to win.
You're right.
But you won the first game.
Correct.
Was it there or here?
Here. Law and then Face come in and close the deal. I think Elroy pitched 3 innings, but I'm not sure.
So after you won that game, I would assume you guys have some confidence, even though you're not supposed to even be on the same field.
We did.
And then you get blasted.
Right.
But you slept good.
That's right. And we got blasted again in New York.
So you play the first 2 in Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
And then you went to New York for how many?
3.
3.
They beat us.
So you're up 1-0. It's tied 1-1.
Now we're down 2-1.
You're down 2-1.
We won the next 2.
In New York.
And then they beat us again. They shut us out again in Ford Field.
So you beat them twice in New York.
Correct.
That had to be good for the confidence.
Law and Haddix. And again, Face closed both deals. All 3 deals. The first one and those 2.
Who's the MVP of this series?
Don't even bring it up. Elroy Face should have won that going away. It's the only time in Major League or World Series history that a player off the losing team won the MVP.
A losing player won the MVP.
Bobby Richardson won it.
Is he the one that got hit in the throat?
No, that was Kubek.
In that series?
Yes. Yeah.
And they gave it to Bobby Richardson because he had a great series.
He did. He had 10, I think he had 12 hits or something like that.
And you think it should have been Elroy Face?
Oh, heck yes. Without a doubt.
Because he had a couple saves.
He had 3 saves.
So now you're up 3-2. You come back to Pittsburgh for 2 games.
Right.
And you get shut out in game 6.
Ford shuts us out again.
Whitey Ford.
We didn't hit a loud foul off him in 2 games.
Was he that good?
Yeah. First of all, they came right out scoring on us. So we were the kind of club that you're trying to get on base, so you're taking a strike. You don't take strikes off of Whitey Ford. You're never going to get a good ball to hit now. You go up there swinging off of him. That's what we did in St. Louis. He started the first game against us, and we just killed him because we went to swinging right off the bat. You give him a strike to work with, you never get a good ball to hit. He pitched masterpiece against us, 2 of them.
So let's talk about Game 7. Before Game 7, what were you guys thinking? Do you think?
We're going to win.
You're going to win.
Yeah.
Because it's
Law was going again.
and he beat him twice already.
Yep. No, we beat him 3 times already.
But what I'm saying is Law beat him twice.
Yes, that's
he won
correct.
Game 1 and 4 or 5, whatever
Right.
it was. So now you got Law going again.
Right.
But that was a high-scoring game.
Whatever it takes.
What?
As Chuck Noll used to say, whatever it takes.
So you've been in a lot of sporting events. What kind of pressure did you feel? Like in Game 7?
Remember, we were ahead, and then all of a sudden, bang, they were up by 3. And now we're back to our old 8th inning act again. And then who knows what goes through Casey Stengel's head. But he has Bobby Shantz out there on the mound. Bobby hasn't given up a hit for 4.5, 5 innings. Gino Samola leads the inning off, and he hit a ball, wasn't that far from the end of the bat, and it just squibbed over second base for a base hit. Verdon come up and hit a tailor-made double play ball to Kubek. I mean, the inning's over and the game's over. Took that bad hop and hit him in the throat. Wow. Now, I was the next hitter. And I ended up going against everything I believed in because I couldn't handle Bobby. I'm trying to stay out of the double play, go to right field. I fouled off. I finally stepped out of the batter's box and I said, you just have to hit it hard and let it go where it wants. If you hit a double play, you hit a double play. And I hit a line drive between third and short for a base hit. Now I become the tying run at first base. You have to, again, blame Casey Stengel, not thinking at all. Danny Murtaugh plays the game exactly the way the book says to play it. Everybody that knows Danny or knows the game, I knew at first base he was going to bunt, and I haven't even looked at the signs because I know that's the way Danny thought. Bob Skinner's a left-handed hitter coming up. He takes the best fielding pitcher, left-hander, in all of baseball, brings in the big, tall right-hander. All of a sudden, I'm having a senior moment. Anyway, Skinner bunted. Now, Burton's on third, I'm on second. Rocky hits a fly ball to right that won't advance us. Clemente comes up. Hits a big high hopper. Scours catches the ball. And the pitcher didn't cover first base. And Bobby beat it out. Now it's first and third, and I become the tying run at third. Hal Smith hits the home run. And that's how we ended up by 2 runs. They got 2 in the tie, and
Wait, you're up 2 in the 8th.
Yeah.
By scoring 4.
5.
5.
Yeah.
You score 5 in the 8th. You're up 2. You were down 3. Now you're up 2.
Typical of hard games, all season long.
And then who's pitching for you in the 9th?
Friends started.
And they roughed him up for a couple.
2 quick hits. Then they brought Harvey in. And Manuel got a base hit. And then we had the controversial play at first base. It was a fiasco. The last thing in the world I expected. Bobby Richardson got a base hit, and Dale Long got a base hit. And that's when they took Friend out. It just, the picture, remember when Bing Crosby had the film? Bing Crosby was the owner. He was superstitious. He thought the Pirates. So he paid a cameraman to come in and film the World Series so he could see it. He was in France. He took the film from a different angle. We had seen Rocky's play at first base 100 times. And Manuel got back. That's all there was to it. When we saw that film, it's a whole different world because he had taken it from the first base side of Forbes Field out this way, and he got a much better angle. Manuel was as far as from here to that curtain off first base.
On a pickoff attempt.
No, on the ground ball, the Yogi hit.
I see.
And somehow Rocky missed him on the way back, the tag, which would have ended the game right there. Instead, it bought time where that would have been the second out. Guy from third base scored and tied the game. Then Maz hit the home run. It was a heck of a finish.
Well, what were you thinking going into the bottom of the 9th? Down by, what was it, tied?
We got 1. Going to the bottom of the 9th. I said, somehow we'll score. I don't know how.
So was it tied going into the bottom of the 9th?
Yeah, when Maz hit the home run.
And what, was he the leadoff?
And when he hit it, I was on almost field level. I just got my hard hit because I was a forced hitter. So I'm right here at the level of the field. And as soon as he hit it, everybody said, get off the wall, get off the wall. Nobody thought he had a chance to carry all the way. sure enough, when they carried, it made a lot of happy people in that dugout.
I mean, they're arguably that's the greatest sports moment in Pittsburgh. I mean, some of the Steeler people might say something different, but that was you guys were such incredible underdogs, or
I
you said
agree.
it was a joke, and you beat the big bad Yankees that have the tradition that goes back forever.
That's true.
And to beat a certain team, I would think that would be the best team you could beat.
It is. There's something special about it. And it's a situation where I know personally, because of my personal experiences and my two closest friends, Bill Verdon and Jerry Lynch. They both grew up in the Yankee organization. If you look back, the Yankees controlled the American League during that period we were playing. And they both would be the first to tell you that was the best organization in all of baseball. In other words, it wasn't an accident where the Yankees won all those world championships. They were a great organization. So to beat them was really special.
And then you did it with the Cardinals.
Pardon me?
Then you did it again with the Cardinals.
Yep. Same Mantle and Maris team. It was fun.
They must not have liked seeing you. Did you ever get to know any of the Yankees?
Bobby Richardson,
Did
I
you?
got to know pretty good, yes.
Did you?
They're good. I like Mantle. But he didn't like me, kiddingly. He called me a dirty name, but that's okay.
What, because you beat him?
No, I picked him off second base in the World Series in '64. And he wrote it in his book. And he actually said, I can't write what I called him.
Well, was he just mad because he got picked off?
Oh, yeah.
So he's blaming you.
Yeah. I did pick him off second base. I told him a funny story, and he walked off second base laughing like this. And as he was laughing, he stepped right here. And I knew when he put his weight on his front foot, he was dead. And Roger Craig gave me an absolute perfect pitch, and I have the picture on my wall. And when Mickey died, I filled up a number of times because I really liked Mickey, and no matter where I saw him, after that, in '64, I picked him up, '65, '66. Anytime I played against him, he referred to me with the same name he called me when I tagged him out.
Really?
And I have that picture. He's going back just like this. And I have made the tag, and you can read Groat on the back, and I've made the tag here. He's raised his head, and that's just when he's saying what he said to me. And it's a perfect picture. The timing was excellent.
And you can't repeat that. what
No,
he
I
said.
can't.
No, you can't repeat that. But you say that you get emotional. Did I hear you say that?
Because I liked him.
And you, when he died,
This is when he was dying.
didn't he get a liver transplant?
No, he had cancer badly.
I see. I see.
That's when he made the speech. I really got upset telling kids, don't look up to me. I did all the wrong things that you shouldn't be doing. He was saying exactly what he should have said toward the end when he was dying.
So what got you upset?
Just hearing him say all those things. I liked Mickey very much. He was the kind of guy who played every day. He was a great competitor.
So that brings emotions to you.
Oh, yeah.
What other people or things that have you gone through your life that brings those kind of emotions to you?
I guess when Stan died, Musial, I got upset here a few weeks ago when I thought Bill Verdon was going to, but he's home now, so he's doing okay. And of course, I lost my partner, Jerry Lynch, which wasn't fun at all, as close as Jerry and I were all through those years at the golf course.
Who are your best friends that going through all the years in sports? Who became some of your best friends? Jerry Lynch?
Pardon me?
Who would you say were your best friends through all those years?
Jerry Lynch, Bill Burden, of course, Bill Hillgrove, Maz, I guess Vernon Law. I've had some great friends at the golf course. People I've become very, very close to that have worked with me and helped with me at the golf course. So all of them weren't all sports people, but Bill and John Hillgrove were both extremely close friends of mine.
Throughout your whole career, any regrets with anything?
But I wasn't able to play more than 1 year in the NBA.
Really?
That's the only regret I've ever had. I mean, you have to be realistic. 2 World Series isn't all bad in 14 years.
No. Beating the Yankees.
Yep.
And bringing one of the greatest sports thrills to the city of Pittsburgh will ever see.
I agree.
I mean, it's legendary. I have to say, and what was probably your best moments in your life, sports or otherwise?
Probably Maz's home run. It's just, and maybe even when I look back on it, the night I signed that contract to join the Pirates, something I dreamed of. The Fort Wayne thing happened so quickly, I just flew in and I was going to they were rushing me to a plane. They said, here, sign this contract. And I signed the contract, got on a plane and flew home. That happened so quickly, but the baseball thing, I did have a chance to digest it when I went home. I've always said I was the luckiest person in the world. Every dream, everything worked out perfectly for me in every possible way.
Well, I just want you to know that it's been a real pleasure and honor for me to interview you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
You've had a career that I don't think anybody could even possibly try to match. You got Bo Jackson played football and baseball, Deion Sanders, but you played basketball and baseball, and I don't think that's going to happen maybe too much. Michael Jordan tried, but he didn't do so well in the diamond. But it's been a real pleasure. And so now you're going to Champion Lakes for the summer like you normally do?
Yep.
Yeah. So if people want to talk to you or see you, is it a public course or a private course?
It's open, public.
So if they want to
Starting
talk,
time, 7 days a week.
so if they want to talk to Dick Groat, they can go make a tee time up at Champion Lakes.
Sure.
And
I'm there 7 days a week.
and so they could talk to you about whatever.
Anything they want.
Yeah. Do you enjoy that?
Yes, I enjoy people.
But your daughter's the boss.
Yeah. I still handle the money, though.
I have a feeling that you got some good daughters.
I do. They're great girls. I'm very proud of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that their father was able to spend 90 minutes with us. It's been a real thrill, and I know my father, who's looking from heaven, he's going to be happy that I'm talking to Dick Groat because he was a big fan. He was a big fan.
Enjoyed being with you.
And I wish you good health and happiness the rest of the way.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you for coming.
It's been fun.
I'm glad you could come out.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our hour with Mr. Groat. He's just been talking about everything and under the sun Pittsburgh sports-wise. Tune into Pitt Basketball, you'll hear him. with his friend Bill Hillgrove. And if you want to meet him, go to Champion Lakes out in Ligonier, play some golf, and he'll talk to you. But what a pleasure this has been for me. I want to leave you with one thought. If you needed an organ transplant to save your life, whether it be your life, someone in your family's life, I'm sure you would accept it. So I think we all should be an organ donor and have the organ donor designation on our licenses, because we would take it, so we should all be organ donors. I hope you enjoyed this hour. I really did. Thank you for watching One on One. I'm your host, Lee Adams. Take care.